Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to another edition of At a Glance, where I give you an appetizer sampler glimpse into a particular faction of 40k. The goal being to help you decide if you want to look into it further and possibly collect them, either as your first force or your 42nd force, doesn't matter. So that's the idea. And up on the chopping block this time is a Chaos Renegade chapter, the Sons of Malice. The Sons of Malice are one of my favorite things of Chaos Space Marines because they're pretty unique. So, real quick, to get them to their renegade status, what happened was they were conducting a campaign assisting a Inquisitor and her retinue of Celestians purging heretics from a planet. Pretty straightforward. But the things about the Sons of Malice is their rites and rituals are so grotesque, profane, so basically straight up cannibalism, and therefore appearing chaos corrupted from the outside and from the onset, that it's a wonder they weren't excommunicated already. So, all Space Marine chapters have some form of blood drinking or flesh eating rituals. It's just part of the thing of being a Space Marine, and most all. I mean, you might be able to find some obscure chapter that doesn't do one or the other or both, but that's basically what Space Marines do. It's part of the whole warrior ritual culture of being an Astartes. But the Sons of Malice were just to the nth degree. So when they were victorious, they were celebrating, and the Inquisitor saw their practice was basically taken back by it, saw something was wrong, and decided to purge them then and there with the Celestians. So she mobilized the Celestians, and they went to fight the Sons of Malice during their victory ritual celebration, and that did not go well. The Sons of Malice slaughtered them all, and ritually sacrificed and ate the Inquisitor up on an altar. And that basically sealed the deal for being excommunicated as traitors. Now, were they already in the grips of chaos during this campaign? Maybe, maybe not. It's not really clear, but it definitely went over the edge with this. So, with that being said, they were excommunicated as traitors. They had a homeworld, but then they fled to the Eye of Terra, and they make use of a space hull kind of now instead of their homeworld. And part of their thing is they're trying to reclaim their homeworld as Chaos Renegades. What makes them interesting to me and unique, well, firstly, before the unique part is, this happened relatively recently in the 40k timeline, so they're a relatively new Chaos Renegade chapter. And what makes them kind of unique is the fact that they worship a minor or a lesser chaos god, a fifth chaos god, called Malal, or more recently just called Malice. And this chaos god has kind of floated in and out of the fluff of 40k and also fantasy. But Malal or Malice, I'm going to just be flip-flopping between those two for the rest of this ramble, is the chaos god of anarchy, the idea of chaos incarnate, what chaos is, not the realm, but the idea of chaos, anarchy, terror, and some destruction. That's all Malal. And it doesn't matter if Malice's followers are the ones being butchered or, having terror and anarchy sown through them. It doesn't matter if it's Malal himself or anybody else. As long as those things are happening, it's all in the service of Malal or Malice. But he's a lesser chaos god, a minor chaos god. He's not one of the big four. He is this fifth one, kind of this outcast god. And, typically with the four chaos gods, you have Tzeentch and Nurgle don't really like each other at all. Khorne and Slaanesh don't really like each other at all. And it's not that the other ones are buddies, it's not like Tzeentch and Slaanesh are buddies or Khorne and Nurgle are buddies, but they have a particular chaos god that is their anti or their foe, and typically it's Nurgle to Tzeentch and Khorne to Slaanesh. For Malal, it's everything. All the chaos gods, everything. Doesn't matter what it is, who it is, it's opposed to everything. And their followers will attack everything with equal fervor. So the Sons of Malice, they will conduct campaigns of terror and anarchy and spreading chaos and prisoner / slave abducting type stuff that they do battles. They'll take prisoners, essentially slaves. And they'll do it to anything, any race, any chaos faction, anything from the Imperium. They're not specifically anti-Imperium like a lot of the other traitor forces are. They're anti-everything. So they will conduct campaigns specifically against Chaos targets, specifically against Xenos targets, and Imperium targets with equal fervor. So, with that being said, to add to their brutal nature, their brutal, bloodthirsty nature, they take prisoners for the use of sacrificial rites as well as consumption. They are cannibalistic, so they do eat their prisoners alive. And a specific thing I can get into is once every century or so around there, the chapter converges to that Space Hulk of theirs, and they bring their prisoners, and that Space Hulk is full of basically chaos spawn and everything, and they conduct numerous rituals, including the going into their own personal little chambers, essentially, to eat their prisoners. And it's kind of a gruesome thing that they do. And to add to their gruesome nature, they fight in utter silence. They don't do any screaming or yelling when they're fighting in combat. They do it in silence. It's the classic way to be disturbing and bloodthirsty at the same time, which is, a nice touch. So that is the Sons of Malice in terms of their style a bit. Their Space Hulk that they utilize is called the Labyrinth. And they have not a lot of fluff, but they got some fluff in regards to the idea of Malice and the idea of these things called the Doomed Ones. And the thing about the Doomed Ones is that it kind of flip-flops back and forth between what they are. And what I mean by that is they are listed in the fluff as being these 11, because 11 is the sacred number of Malice, these 11 champions of the chapter who are ritually sacrifice themselves to summon Malal into real space. So that's one thing that's pretty cool about Malice. Being a lesser god, you can actually summon their god into real space. You can't summon Tzeentch itself or Korn himself or anything like that into real space. The servants, sure, but not them. It's too much. They can't exist in reality, but Malal can, with a suitable body and suitable sacrifice. But then you have listing of the Doomed Ones as kind of like the chosen of Malal. They're basically listed as being kind of the elite group of the chapter, Malal's holy warriors. So you have them, the idea of there's only 11 of them that were just sacrificed to summon Malice into real space, and you have the idea that they're also holy warriors. So it's up to you which way you want to go with that. But like I said, this chapter equally fights against the side of order, the Imperium and Xenos and stuff like that, as well as chaos, with equal cold efficiency and equal disturbing silence and everything. So that's why I like the chapter the way it is. One thing I also like about them is, what I find interesting, maybe is because they're still relatively recently new Chaos Renegade, or just because it's the way they like to do things, they maintain 11 companies as opposed to 10. Typically chapters maintain 10 companies, they maintain 11 because it's a sacred number of Malice. However, they actually maintain the general organization of a chapter of the Codex Astartes, even though they're Chaos Renegades. A lot of the other, pretty much most every other Traitor Legion or Renegade chapter changes their structure up, but not the case with the Sons of Malice. They fight and function in the same way that a Loyalist chapter does, only they're Renegades. And this brings up some interesting things that I'll get back to in a moment, but that's just something else to keep in mind. So as you've seen, their color scheme is a quartered color scheme, which is not something common amongst Chaos forces. You see that amongst the Loyalists, but not so much amongst traitors. And their quartered scheme is black and white. They do a quartered black and white with silver trim. And I like it. It's a nice kind of touch to the look of them. It's different than what you would expect for a Chaos Force, and I like that. Their symbol is the symbol of Malice, which is a skull that is half black and half white. So that is their color scheme. And when it comes to collecting them kit-wise, you have the Chaos Space Marine kits as well as the generic Space Marine kits. Remember, they're a much more recent addition to the Chaos Renegades. They wouldn't be necessarily all full-on Chaos corrupted with spikes and horns and whatnot. You can do that fine, no problem. But if you want to add kind of a extra touch to them, you could take regular Space Marine bits and combine it with Chaos Space Marine bits. Anything where there's an Imperial Eagle or any symbol of the Imperium, you can take a file or carefully with a hobby knife or something like that, and you can carve like X's into that to show them defacing those symbols if you want to. Well, it's a good way to add that heretical renegade touch. So that's up to you. Now, when it comes to a codex, straight up, Chaos Space Marine Codex will work just fine. They don't have the same access to stuff. They're not going to necessarily have the 4 cult squads, meaning Rubric Marines, Plague Marines, Noise Marines, or Berserkers. They're not necessarily going to have those. They do have Chaos Spawn, but they don't really have much in terms of demons. Remember, they worship Malice, so they're not going to have much on the demonic side of that codex. But what you can do is pick an icon that you think works well for your playstyle for the Sons of Malice, and then instead of fielding that Chaos God icon, you can convert it to be a skull, be the symbol of Malice, and just let your opponent know, hey, all of these icons, they are actually the icon of Khorne. They don't worship Khorne, they worship Malice, but it fit in, yada yada yada. As long as it's consistent, you don't change up what icon it is for every squad. Keep it the same icon, and you should be fine. Also, I think if you want to do a counts as Khorne Berserker type squad, that is a squad that would fit in with their style as well. And you can do accounts as, you just suitably convert them up to look different and not look like Khorne, because they don't, or Khorne Berserkers, because they don't worship Khorne, they worship Malice. So their color scheme would still be the black and white corded, but you can give them axes and chain swords and stuff like that and make them look suitably brutal, and it could work. Your other option is this, the generic Space Marine Codex. Remember, they maintain their organization just like a loyalist chapter, so it all works. You have 1st through, in this case, 11th Company, and that could potentially mean that they maintain scouts as well, and you have access to that with the generic Space Marine Codex. But either codex will work equally well for this unique Chaos Renegade chapter, because look at it this way: 1st Company would be chosen in the Chaos Codex. Devastators or Havocs. You have a close enough approximation that whether you went with the Chaos Codex or the generic Space Marine Codex, you can still keep a company style and mentality to them. But those are just some ideas for collecting them. The Chaos Space Marine Codex is something I think would work a bit better for them, but the generic Space Marine Codex I think also works very well for them, and much better for them than it would for other Renegade chapters. So just something to keep in mind and think about. Anyways, that's really it for the Sons of Malice chapter. I kind of went a little bit more in detail with them than I would for other forces, but they have this unique god that they worship and stuff like that, so I wanted to cover all of that for the Sons of Malice. I don't know of any other force really in 40k that worships Malal, so this is something kind of unique, and that's why I like them. Their color scheme is cool, the black and white quartered. I'm not good at painting up quartered Space Marines, so I would never attempt it personally, but it does look pretty cool when it's done that way. Anyways, that's really it. So thanks for sticking through it, and if you have any questions or comments or requests, put them in the comments section. As long as it's an official GW force and it has a color scheme and fluff, I can do them for sure. Now, if it's an official GW force and it has a good amount of fluff but no official color scheme, I can still make do, but I can't make do with the opposite. It needs fluff for me to talk about it. So anyways, that's really it. Thanks for sticking through it, and until next time, take it easy.